Let's call the meeting to order. First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody to the August board meeting. My name is Steve Schneider. I'm the vice president of the board. I'm sitting in for Bob as Bob is out of town. So without further ado, let's confirm we've got 6 to 7 board members here. We have a quorum. So the next item agenda would be our minutes. Going to have a motion to approve the July 17th minutes.
Steve.
Yes?
Bob Jr.
I have one slight revision to the minutes as prepared. The final payout number on the insurance, as Judy has summarized it, is a slightly different number than what is in the minute draft. It's a $2,000 difference. I can give that number, which is total $4,674,108. Judy has a schedule on that. I just asked that the minutes be updated for that.
So moved. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes with Mike's adjustment to the payout number?
So move. I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approval of the minutes, raise your hand. It's 6-0. Next item, we have a CEO report from Chet.
Okay, I will try and keep my report brief so as not to step on all the other people who are going to come along and report on many of the things that I would. The POA staff has moved forward with their process of beginning to build the budget for 2025. We put together our SWOT analysis and are in the process of finalizing our business plans with the goal of having the budget done and ready to go by October. And this year, the budgets will come from each department in what we are referring to as a book. And each department's book will be comprised of a SWOT analysis, a business plan, and then, of course, the numbers for their particular budget. We'll also have an executive book, which will have the SWOT analysis and business plan at the executive level to oversee the entire community, and it will also include a roll-up of the budget. So these are the things that we're in the process of working on currently. Brief Tenacity update. We have received 3 bids on Tenacity and are reviewing them and going back to those bidders. We hope to be able to have some final numbers to review within 2 weeks. So we are moving ahead as quickly as possible with that. The only other thing that I would like to bring up is a somewhat difficult and touchy subject, and that is, in the last few weeks, I have had staff members, employees, being both physically and verbally abused by homeowners. And when I say physically and verbally abused, I am not talking about telling somebody they're doing their job wrong. I'm talking about somebody spending 15 minutes using incredibly profane language and taking every personal attack they possibly can on an employee. And another person also went after one of our managers at a restaurant and was hitting him with the menu and telling him he needed to do his blankety blank blank job. And this went on for about, 15 minutes, and which we all had on camera. So my point in bringing this up is the third thing, which in my mind also affects you as individual homeowners, is we've had both committee members and individuals within the community receive all kinds of hate mail, to the point where some of our committee members have just resigned from the committee because they're like, I'm retired. I don't need to put up with this. And they're right. They don't, and they shouldn't have to. But I bring it up simply to ask the community, both those listening and who are present, this is not us. This is not who we are. This is not the community that we are. Please treat each other with respect. And those of you who believe that you have permission to abuse and treat badly employees, regardless of what the situation is, the 2 people that I'm speaking of, I had to send a letter, and I've taken away their rights to the amenities for 30 days. And I mean all the amenities. And if it continues again, they'll just be banned, period. We as a community, I cannot, as the leader of the employees we have here, I cannot allow for them to be treated in such a manner at all. It's one thing to tell somebody they're doing it wrong. It's another thing to spend an awful lot of time just standing there cussing them. It is completely inappropriate and it will not be tolerated. And I wanted everybody to understand that that I have the responsibility to impose consequences for that kind of behavior. That's about all I got. Thursday, Town Hall. Yep, oh yeah, forgot about that, Town Hall. We're gonna talk about, we're gonna talk about Tenasseee. I hope to have more information on Tenasseee at that point. We're gonna talk about, becoming, an incorporated town and have some conversations on that. And outside of that, we'll be taking all your questions. I gave it. Stay with me. I'm talking fast.
Just to be, Chet, just to be clear, the town hall is a week from tomorrow, not tomorrow.
No, it's not this Thursday, it's next Thursday. Sorry,
Yeah.
I meant next Thursday.
And then in terms of the discussion around incorporation, it's not anybody proposing per se, it's discussing pros and cons and options and requirements is the part of that discussion.
So the reality of it is the only reason we're having this is because it was brought up and I was asked to talk about it. So I'm going to talk about it. I'd like to point out that it's been talked about in 1998, in 2000, in 2011, 2016, briefly in 2018, and now here we are in 2024. My goal in this conversation is to put it to bed, one way or the other. We can't just keep going round and round. So we'll talk about that at the town hall, and we'll discuss those pros and cons and give people some options and help you understand what your part in all of this would be.
Any questions of Chet?
Chet, real quick, if I may.
If you wouldn't mind, get to the speaker and name and.
There we go. Real quick, why would we even allow someone to assault one of our employees?
We don't.
That's a criminal act. Were the authorities brought in to talk about this?
It was decided by the manager that he didn't want to bring in the police this time. It wasn't a point that he wanted to bring that in and embarrass everybody in the restaurant at the same time of having that on. And there were other people there who witnessed it, and we interviewed other people. I didn't just make my decision by looking at a camera and seeing what went on.
Well, that's fair, but in that space, it's of paramount importance to all of us that our employees feel safe in their workspace.
Absolutely correct.
And I mean, the authorities don't have to show up at the workspace. If you have video and everything, they can show up at their house and have a conversation with them.
I think
Perhaps
that,
that would impugn.
yeah, if it happens again, then it becomes a sticky wicket. Let's put it that way. But you're right. If the employee had requested that, I'd have done it in a minute without a second thought. And so that's always an option. And had it been truly a physical, like I'm balling up my fist and punching you, I wouldn't have asked him. I'd have had the police there.
I just want to make sure we're protecting our employees.
Absolutely correct. No, that's, we're taking all the steps that we can, and taking away people's rights to the amenities is the first step. It's not the only step. It's just the first step.
Hopefully, we won't need another.
I agree completely. There's nothing I take any pleasure in at all in this.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chet? Okay, let's move on. We have an update by the chief on our volunteer fire department. Chief, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. I appreciate and welcome the opportunity to bring everybody up to date. Oops, wrong way. Update on our run data as far as our 2024 runs to date. a 5-year summary, some interesting facts, overview on training, grants and opportunities, and then public relations and Tennessee State Fire Marshal Office. It's basically a public service announcement that I'll be making. As of today at 8 o'clock, we are sitting at 1,014 calls for the year, and we're projecting it will be well over 1,550 calls for the year. Last year, we were at 1,486 total calls. 1,206 were medical, 280 were fire. So right now, that was a snapshot as of the end of July at 926. Total calls, 761 medical and 165 on the fire other calls. And this is just a snapshot. I have spare time every once in a while, and I'll just say, okay, where are the calls? So you can see that the Tokwa neighborhood is the older neighborhood, the older homes and the older residents, and then Tanassi is right in there. And then Chattooga, you factor in the neighborhood and premier residents, that adds to the numbers for those. For the training for the year, with the 34 to 35 members averaging over the time, we had 305 class hours, and then I apologize, I fat-fingered the total training hours. It's 3,200 training hours, 3,200 training hours. 2 members completed a 15-week, 18-hour instructions to become AEMTs. 3 members completed the 12-week EMR class. 2 are in the current class that will complete on the 26th, not the 29th. Or 19th. We had a delay of a week. 3 members completed the state 64-hour firefighter course. 8 members went to Alcoa to experience live burn. As of today, we have 8 AEMTs, 2 EMTs, 23 EMRs, emergency medical responders, and 6 are in training. And our service agreement says that we shall have a minimum of 10. Back on May 5th, at our open house, we dedicated the boat that we received the grant on, $175,000, and that was placed in the water it was dedicated on the 4th and put in the water on the 5th, and the 2 new vans were dedicated on the 4th and put into service that day also. And they were a grant for $125,000. And the boat has seen 4 calls so far on the lake. Late in April, I was asked to give a presentation to a group called 100 Women Who Care of East Tennessee. And they select 3 501c3 organizations to make a presentation. You come in, you're given 5 minutes to make a presentation, 5 minutes to answer questions, and then you will leave the room. And then during that time, when you leave the room, the ladies will vote to see who they're going to give the money to. I walked out with a $16,000 check that day. Another $5,000 matching grant. So with that, we went in with a purpose, and we told the ladies if we were the recipients, we would be buying these 2 items. On the left is what is called a CO oximeter, so we can stick that on your finger. Anybody that has a CO alarm going off in their house, and we had 18 of those in the last quarter of 23. We can stick that on your finger and tell you what your CO is in your blood. O2 will mask it. If we use pulse oximeters, we'll mask that, so we will never get a true CO reading. So we are the only department in the county. The ambulance doesn't even have them. So we bought 3 of those, 1 in each of the red vehicles, and 1 will be in the rescue vehicle that will respond to calls in the county when we're mutual aid. On the right, we had bought individual CO monitors that everyone has clipped onto their vest or their bag as they're going into a house. And if it goes off, that means there's CO in the house to get out, get the patient out and get to fresh air. The 24 on it means it's got a 24-month life. They're about $150 a piece, so it's a disposable type item. So right now, everybody's in the 23, 24-month time frame. So everyone is walking around with those. So if you see them on anybody, you know that's what it's doing. It's just monitoring the CO in the room or in the air. This is more of a public service announcement, working with the state fire marshals. In late July, we received, the fire marshal received a complaint about a possible electric current in Tellico Lake. And if I can, this is the yacht club down here. This is Tanasi Road, or Tanasi, Tanasi Lane, Tanasi Way, Depew. So that's the base, the little cove that's right up the river, if you want to call it, up the lake from the yacht club. The caller called in from here, and the state fire marshal went there and inspected that dock, that person's dock, and they found that there was some voltage. They came back with proper instrumentation, and they asked if we could use our boat, so we sailed with them, and the fire marshal, the fire marshal's electrical inspectors sailed this whole cove and checked all of the docks in that area. We found 2 over here that were reading in the dangerous zone. So what happens if it's an electric fault, the electricity will come from the boat or from your dock right to the ground. So anything that's on your pier or boat, if you touch it and then touch the water, you can be electrocuted or you'll feel electricity. So what we did is that they went around and checked everything, and and if it's a true fault in the ground for your lighting fixture or something like that, and it goes to ground, then the current's going to be higher going to that, and if you're on your pier or dock, you could get a higher voltage. So what they did is they went through and they have a device called Shock Alert that they pull in the water, and they'll read the current, the AC current, or they can use a fluke meter with probes, and they'll check the voltage that's also in the water. So what they were seeing was 0 to 1.5 volts AC is acceptable. 1.5 to 2 volt, you'll start to feel a tingle if you're touching the ladder and the water at the same time. If you're underwater and touch the ladder, if you see it, you're starting to get a tingle. An indication of possible electric, if you have a aluminum or stainless steel ladder, at the water line, if you see a black line around it, that means there's electricity present in the area. So and then 2 to 3 volts is borderline unacceptable, and 5 and above is dangerous. So the 2 houses in this area, one was a 5.2 and one was a 5.8. The cause of that was the one individual just had a new irrigation system put in March, and the contractor put in the wrong, an inappropriate pump. They used a deep well pump versus a submersible pump, and it was getting a direct short. So those 2 people were given 60-day notices to get it fixed. They will be coming back to do another check in the area to see if there's anything more in that. So what we're going to offer from the fire department is there's a program that I gave an update to the advisory committee the other day, and I'm going to work with to try to get a public service announcement in Telegram and all that as far as what can happen and what should we do and all this. We're going to offer, if you want your dock checked, send an email to Chief 1201. We'll combine everything and see if we can come up with, okay, we'll call and confirm that you're asking for it, try to get a route together that will come to your house, come out to your dock, and do the readings and advise you of your readings. And then if you're above the 5.8, it's dangerous, and it's going to be your responsibility to have a certified licensed electrician to make the corrections. The fire marshal reached out when they first got the initial call. They called TVA, TWRA, POA, and they all said it's the responsibility of the homeowner. It's not their responsibilities. So that's where it stands right now, that we'll attempt to do this. If we get overwhelmed, we might have to back off, but I have 3 engineers that are willing to come out and do these readings for the residents.
Excuse me, will you be doing these in Kahidi too?
We could work with Kahidi, yes.
Okay.
Jerry, I thought you'd mentioned 2 situations. You described one with the pump. Was there a second?
Second one was a similar thing with a pump.
Okay,
So it was both of them were the inappropriate pumps installed, and that's what the fire marshal's looking at, is everything they're putting in well pumps versus submersible pumps for the irrigation system. Because as soon as they turned on the irrigation system, the voltage increased.
Wow.
And then just an update, our website will be updated with this type of information on it. And lastly, I want to put a shout out to Joshua Spangler and Kevin Hamlin for their excellent communications last Friday during the water outage up at Kahidi, or at the Coyote section. They gave me a call immediately. I was able to call Greenback and put 2 tankers on standby if we had a fire, and they kept me up to date as far as the progress. So kudos. That's all I have.
Jerry, another question. Could you distinguish the boat that the fire department has, how it would be utilized versus what T-BART does on the lake, just for everyone's benefit?
Our boat, let me go back. Oh. Sorry. Our boat has a 500-gallon-a-minute pump on it with a nozzle that can operate, so we can pilot and pump water at the same time. The front of the boat drops down so that you can walk into the water. We can retrieve a body or take a 4-wheel drive vehicle. We can go to a house fire that has lake access, beach it, drop it, hook a line, and run 500 gallons a minute off of another engine per se right there, feeding the house. It shoots about 150 feet of water, 500 gallons a minute. We made it from the yacht club to Fisherman's Pier up at near the dam in 7 minutes. We backed off that we didn't want to beat the TVA there, so, but that boat moves.
And I've personally seen it in action.
Yes. Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Chief. So
Before you go, Marty's got something to bring to the board for you.
yeah, so in relation to that, I am the liaison to the fire department from the board's perspective. And we were talking about retention of volunteers, both in terms of the fire department and of the first responders. And one of the things that they said would really help incentivize people would be if the POA would provide rec memberships, which is also important to help keep them in good physical condition for what they do. So with that in mind, I'd like to make a motion. So due to the important role of first responders and volunteer fire department volunteers, their importance in maintaining good physical condition and the benefit they bring to all Tellico Village residents, I move that the POA provide individual rec memberships to each of these volunteers.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Well, I'll say, we talked about this morning, and with the volunteer efforts and putting yourself in danger to help the community, I'll say that, well, we'll see what the vote was. It was a very positive discussion this morning. So are there any other comments? Any discussion from the audience?
I just had a question. Would that cover Hopewell and the volunteers in Kahidi?
Well, what we talked about was since the POA, well, Keedy has the rec there, yeah, at the
Right, right. We have a
golf
small
course.
rec center.
So
Yeah.
it would cover that.
Okay, okay. So, but it would include the people that do Hopewell. It's not just, because it's a different group.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, we were talking specifically about the volunteer fire department.
Residents in the village.
Yeah, so I guess we'll have to consider that too, because I'm not really sure what the implication of that would be.
I know it has been brought up before with Hopewell and the volunteers, that they had requested that in the past to be able to stay in shape, just, which is exactly what you mentioned. I just want to make sure that they can be part of that.
Yeah, I think what we'll need is a request, and we can address it next month if we get the request soon enough.
Okay,
But that is not part of this proposal, right?
okay. So I'll take it on to
Thank you.
contact Hopewell.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, thanks.
Any other comments? So, without any further comments, all those in favor of providing single rec memberships for our volunteers that work with the Tellico Village Volunteer Fire Department? All approve, raise your hand. 6-0. It's
Thank you.
done.
Thank you.
Steve, I would just take a minute to add to Jerry and his entire staff how much we value your efforts and appreciate all that the volunteer fire department does for Tellico Village. You guys perform a great service. Thank you.
And now for an update by Phil on our long-range plan and the studies. It's all yours, Phil.
So thank you very much. Phil Brenner, I'm the 2024 Chair of the Long Range Planning Advisory Committee. We've got a lot of stuff to cover here this afternoon, so I'm going to try and keep us on pace if I can. And we'll start here with kind of an overview of what we're going to touch on here. Very briefly, we're going to talk about our 2024 goals, and I'm going to give you a one-sentence update on those goals. We're going to talk about an updated housing forecast. The last couple of times I've been in front of you, we've talked about housing, and we've done some more work in that area, so I'm going to give you, again, a brief update on housing forecasts. And then we're going to spend the bulk of our time this afternoon responding to a request that the board made of the committee earlier this year to benchmark our rates, our POA fees, our amenity fees, against comparable communities in the area and other options in the area that people might partake in. So with that, let's turn to my one-sentence update on goals. So on the left-hand side are the goals that we agreed to with the board earlier this year. Broadly, there are two goals. One is to continue the strategic long-range facilities plan and utilization forecast. This year, we're focusing in the area of parks and recreation, parking, and marinas. And the other broad goal is to produce a comprehensive benchmark of Tellico Village against other communities. My one-sentence update is all of these are in progress. So with that, let's turn to the housing forecast. So, the market is shifting on us, and we've talked about this the last couple of times as we approach build-out. There are also economic factors that are at play here that cause us to go back and look at our model and think about how accurate our model was and whether or not we could do something better. So some data points here. Permits through July compared to last year are down 21%. Now, we're still having a pretty good year in terms of historical data, in terms of the number of homes being built in Tellico Village. But compared to the gangbuster years that we've had here the last 2 or 3 years, we're seeing a downtrend from that. When I was with you, I think it was in May, we talked about a build-out model, or we tried to model what the build-out tail was going to look like and how that curve might flatten out. And in that discussion, I said, we think somewhere there's a cliff we're going to step off, and, housing starts are going to, take a nosedive. And at that time, we said, we think it's maybe 2026, but we don't really know. We're sort of in uncharted waters here. So one of our members, Chris Alsop, went back to the drawing board and spent a lot of time thinking about our model and thinking about how we might better model what the housing forecast might look like. And he spent a lot of time coming up with a new model, which we won't spend a lot of time with because Chris could make your head explode explaining it to you. But I'll give you the layman's summary here. So he went back and looked at, I'll call it the life cycle of a lot. And he did that with ACC records, January of 2019 through the present. But he also used the Tennessee controller of the Treasury, who had lot data all the way back to 1985. And so they looked at every single lot and said, what's the life cycle of the lot? What stages does it go through? And kind of what are the dynamics of that? And out of that, he built a whole new model that was, we think, more reflective of what may be happening in the market and may be a better guide for predicting what's coming in next. So with that, I'm going to start here in the lower left-hand corner. You really can't see the numbers. You don't need to. That is sort of the linear regression model that we have been working with, and the actual data here over the last decade or so. You can just see it's a 45-degree, almost, constant incline, up, and up. The chart on the upper left is the new model that we have done, that Chris worked on, and the blue bars are the prediction of housing starts, or permits, I should say permits getting pulled. And for 2024, that new model says 2024's permits will be somewhere around 200. And there's a gray band there. That's kind of the margin of error. It could be higher, it could be lower, but somewhere in that band. And as you can see, from 2024 forward, you can see the curve flatten, the curve going down, flattening out. And on the right-hand side, then, the inverse of this is the build-out percentage. And we've talked about build-out before. Again, the line is sort of the forecast model, and the band there is the margin of error, if you will. And we did a Monte Carlo analysis. The headline here is that the big picture story does not change. We are reaching build-out. Fewer and fewer lots are going to be available. The lot sales will go away. The revenue associated with it will go away. What the new model says is it's going to stretch out a little further, perhaps, or perhaps it's going to come a little sooner. The turndown is going to come a little sooner, meaning that build-out will take a little bit longer than we had forecasted in the past. But at the end of the day, it's the same story. In terms of what does that mean for the POA staff and for the board, this chart sort of shows what does the old model and what does the new model predict in terms of housing permits. So I'll start here. 283 was the actual number of permits last year. When we built our model late last year, the model said, 292 permits for 2024. The new model now says, we think it's more like 200 permits for 2024. And you can see you get kind of to the same end point, but the pace at which you get there is different. I will say that at the end of the day, based on the pace that we're on right now, we had 118 permits through July. If we kept that same pace, we would end up right around 200. Talking to the ACC, they feel like the market is softening. They're seeing fewer applications come before them. Although I will note that last year, December was the third highest permit month, so you can't just assume that the tail end of the year will be soft. We could see, an uptick in that. If you apply the January through July pace through the balance of the year, you'll end up around 200. If it softens a little, you're probably more like 160 to 180, somewhere in that neighborhood. What I will say is that would appear to land us north of what the POA budgeted. The POA budgeted 158 lots this year, and will land us south of what our models predicted. So kind of in between the budget and the model is what it's kind of looking like right now. That's the headline. I'll pause there to see if there are any questions. Like I said, the big picture doesn't change. These numbers perhaps will be of use as we get into budget time. If you look to 2025, the new model would say 142 permits for next year is what the model would predict. So as you roll into budgeting for next year, that's at least a starting point in terms of what to build into the budget.
Yeah, all I was going to say is this is perfect timing for the budget season to see when we put our assumptions together. This is a good starting point.
All right, great.
And just, Phil, just for a frame of reference for residents, can you speak to what communities normally see as a build-out percentage where they really begin to flatline or top out?
Well, most developers figure 85% is build out. I think that's where developers say, I've made my money and I'm getting out of Dodge, you know? And things start to tail out, you know, there are fewer and fewer lots. You know, we're already at 85%, and while permit activity is softening, you know, if we end up between 150 and 200 permits, 4 years ago, we'd have said, that's a hell of a year. You know, that was before we were having 200 and 300 permits a year, which was crazy. It's more the return to the mean, you know, is what I would say, is getting back to more of a normal pace. But there will be fewer and fewer lots available, so, you know, the curve will flatten out.
And the end result is your ACC fees, which is a revenue stream to offset costs,
Right.
starts going down significantly.
Yeah, so that story hasn't changed. That revenue source is going away. All right, so selected rate benchmarks. So back in late spring, the board came to the committee. We had already agreed on a goal to do a benchmark, and for the audience, a benchmark is when you take your product or services or goods or whatever it is you do, and you compare it to your competition and say, how do you stack up? And so we already had a goal to kind of do that in terms of looking at Tellico Village, particularly with regard to amenities, to see how we stack up against other communities. But the board came to us and said, we'd like for you, the committee, to take on a special task here with regard to benchmarking, and that is to benchmark fees in the following areas. And what the board specifically asked us to do was to look at monthly assessments, marinas, and parenthetically, I'm going to say boat slips because maybe we don't operate a marina, but we do rent boat slips, recreation or gym memberships, and golf. And so we went to ground to work on that and kind of parked the other benchmarking. We've continued to work on it, but we really focused on the rate request that the board made for us, of us, and specifically you asked for that in time to inform the budget cycle. So here we are, budget cycle, and we're going to share with you kind of what we found out. Let me talk a little bit first, though, about the challenge of making comparisons, right? Because what you're asking us to do here is to go find a bunch of data that's really hard to find. Most communities don't readily publish a lot of their fees and rates and assessments, and that data is really hard to get your hands on. So first of all, I want to extend my thanks to the other advisory committees that we worked with, marinas, golf, parks, and recs, who, you know, in the course of their own activities have done some benchmarking, and we relied on work that they have done to guide us and help us with filling in the blanks. But quite frankly, the other activity here was the committee turned into a bunch of secret shoppers. I mean, we were on the phone and we're sending emails and saying, hey, my name's Phil and I'm thinking about coming and living in your community. What can you tell me about it, right? And, you know, how much do you charge for this? And do you have a gym? And, you know, and this is very time consuming and difficult, and you don't always get all the answers. So I've got a tongue-in-cheek slide here, but at the end of the day, you're getting a bunch of numbers, and you got to stand back and say, is this apples to apples? And, you know, sometimes it is. Sometimes it might be a green apple and a red apple, but it's apples to apples. Sometimes it's apples and oranges, and sometimes it's apples and bananas. And it's really difficult at times to kind of figure out what is what. So we've done our best, and you'll see throughout the presentation that we've tried to call out things where we say, this is not exactly the same, but it's kind of close, or we don't know if this is the same or not. And we're going to present to you the data. I will say that the Long Range Planning Advisory Committee is a fact-based, data-driven group. We're not in the policy-making business. So in the course of this presentation, I'm not going to make any recommendations about what our rates should or shouldn't be. I'm just going to show you the facts. This is the data, right? At the end of the day, whether you or I or anybody in the audience thinks that a particular rate or fee is reasonable or not reasonable, is a good value or not a good value, is ultimately in the eye of the beholder, right? So it's like beauty. It's in the eye of the beholder. That said, I'm going to start my presentation by where I'm going to end up here. I'm going to give you a little preview here of one potential way to measure how people vote with their dollars in terms of registering the value of things. This is multiple listing service data, January through July of this year. I'm going to start in the upper right-hand corner there. Those are year-to-date sales. We've got Tennessee National, Fairfield Glade, Rarity Bay, and Tellico Village. We don't have MLS data for Wind River. And it's a little hard to see here, but what I will tell you here, if I can read my own mouse type here, Tellico Village year-to-date had 289 home sales. That was 2.5 times Fairfield Glade, who of those communities is nearest to us in size. They've got about 5,000 homes there. We've got about 5,000 homes here, and our sales volume is 2.5 times their sales volume. The box below that is square footage. The homes there are slightly smaller, just under 2,000 feet, 2,000 square feet. We're more like 2,500 square feet. So you can see that. I think the aha moment is on the left-hand side, and this is, again, from MLS data. This is the average sold price per square foot for those communities. So in Tennessee National, it was $261. Fairfield Glade, $207. Rarity Bay, $257, if I can read my small print here, and in Tellico Village, $277. So people voting with their money in terms of where do they think there is value, because they're going to go buy a home somewhere, are voting to come to Tellico Village. So why is that? Let's turn to the data behind that. The first area the board asked us to look at was monthly assessments. And on the left-hand side is what you asked us for, and I'm going to take you through that, and then on the right-hand side you get some bonus information here. So on the left-hand side here, we're going to start with Tennessee National. Their monthly assessment is $350. Fairfield Glade is $76. Wind River doesn't have a monthly assessment, but they have a required social membership fee, which is $295. Rarity Bay is a little different. Their business model is a little different. They have a what they call an annual master assessment that everybody pays. In addition to that, you pay a monthly or quarterly assessment depending on what community within Rarity Bay your house is located in. So you see multiple bars there for Rarity Bay, because depending on where you live, your assessment fee is slightly different. And at the bottom of the list there is Tellico Village at $176. The average for the group on the left, these are I'll call them our sister communities, the planned development, retirement-focused communities in our own backyard. The average for that group is $242 a month. The footnote there, because I wanted to double check that against some other data, the U.S. Census Bureau does a housing survey. The last one they did was in 2021, and in that survey, they asked people who are in condos or other associations that pay a fee, what that fee is, and the average fee from the Census Bureau data was $191. Now, on the right-hand side, the board didn't ask for this, but in the course of doing our benchmarking work, we had already collected some information about some of the communities we are looking at there. So you have communities, so you can see them, Winding River, Sun City, I'm going to kind of skim through here. We won't go through them all. Savannah Lakes, Robeson Ranch is in Texas, Lake Providence, Glade Springs, another Cooper community in West Virginia. You can see the monthly assessment fees for each of those, and again, the orange bar at the bottom in the dashed line there is where Tellico Village falls. Now, again, back to my apples and oranges or apples and bananas comparison here. The devil is in the details on this. The footnote down below, Lake Providence has different fees depending on the size of your home. Robeson Ranch, they're $312, but that includes all their amenities except golf. Sun City and Hilton Head, they're $286. That includes lawn care, the pool, and fitness. So you really have to do a little digging to understand, you know, is it apples to apples or not? But this gives you a snapshot at least of how Tellico Village's monthly assessment stacks up against the sister communities in our own backyard and some of the other communities that we're looking at in the course of our benchmarking. I'm going to pause here real quick here and see if there are any questions about assessments before we turn our attention to a bonus slide. A bonus slide. All right. So the board didn't ask, but since we were digging, we uncovered some information I thought I would share. These are buy-in or membership fees of our sister communities in the area. So starting with Rarity Bay at the top there, they have a required social membership. So when you buy into Rarity Bay, it's $10,000. That is not transferable. Every new property owner pays that $10,000 fee. In addition, you have a $600 annual food minimum that you have to spend in their facilities. And their social membership, in addition to the $10,000 up front, is $250 a month. So that's what it costs to live in Rarity Bay. Now, if you want a golf membership in Rarity Bay, which you can purchase, that's $25,000 up front. And then it's $400 a month. Now, that does include the social membership above, and the golf membership is transferable, so a new buyer can take on that golf membership. So again, if you're a golfer and want to play golf, you know, your upfront fee there would be $25,000 and then $400 a month. If you look at the center of the chart there, Wind River, so Wind River has a couple of fees as I understand it here. If the property is sold to you by Wind River, it's $50,000 to buy into the community. If the property is not sold by Wind River, it's $100,000 to buy into the community. They have a required social membership, $295 a month. As I mentioned, that includes their gym, their pool, their sports complex, and they have a golf membership that you can buy into if you'd like to do that, and that's $650 a month. That includes the social membership, includes unlimited golf and a cart and the range. Fairfield Glade has just implemented, as of the 1st of July, so this is hot off the presses, a new amenity reserve fee. This is for what they call their A-tier residents. And I had to ask, because I didn't know what's an A-tier residence. In Fairfield Glade, a A-tier residence is a home on a paved street with utilities at the curb. And so the buy-in fee at Fairfield Glade is $5,000. Over at Tennessee National, you buy in with a golf membership there. They're a more golf-centric community. The buy-in there is $25,500, and the monthly golf fee is $630 a month, and that gets you unlimited golf at Tennessee National. At the bottom of this chart then is Tellico Village in the orange. we have been talking about and have proposed a 0.5% fee. And so I just put a couple of examples in there. On a $500,000 home, that would equate to $2,500. On a $750,000 home, that would equate to $3,750. So again, this is not specifically among the things you asked for back in the spring, but in the course of talking to these communities about their fees, we uncovered all this and wanted to document it for you. So again, I'll pause here and see if you have any questions about that.
The only other piece I could add is on the your assessments. I know that Tennessee National, there is no cap. So if they decide next year that they need to increase the
Oh, in terms of
assessment,
annual increases?
yeah, there is no cap
Okay.
on your monthly assessments at Tennessee
Okay.
National.
All right, so we'll get back to the request here from the board. You asked for, literally what you asked for was marinas. I titled this boat slip because we'll talk a little bit about what's a boat slip and what's a marina. On the left-hand side, same kind of thing here. Left-hand side is what you asked for, or the sister communities. On the right-hand side are some local marinas that you might choose to put your boat at. Starting at the top here, we have Foothills Point, which is another community here on the lake. Their slips are $400. In Rarity Bay, they are $3,600. And Rarity Bay, the POA there does not own or manage those. Those are owned and managed by Bay Docks Limited, which is a private entity. So there's a guy you got to call up and get a boat slip from. Fairfield Glade, $960. Tennessee National is, again, here, I should have brought my glasses, $3,300. Wind River is $2,900 and change, and we are at $942. Now, I should say this is for in our case, it's an 11 by 24 slip, uncovered. Wind River's a 12 by 30. Tennessee National is 11 by 26. That happens to be covered. I couldn't find a rate for uncovered. Maybe they're all covered at Tennessee National. I don't know. So, okay. So again, this is the apples and oranges thing. What can you get your hands on, and is it apples to apples or not? On the right-hand side are local marinas. If you said, I'm not doing that, I'm going to just go put my boat at one of the local marinas. So Whispering Cove's at the top there for $3,700 and change. Chota Marina, Sequoia Marina, Tellico Marina, Fort Loud Marina, they're all in the $3,000 and north range. Again, we're at $942. The average on the left is $2,022. The average on the right was $3,124. Now, I do want to put a caveat here, because in speaking with the Marinas Advisory Committee, and they gave you a very good presentation back in 2021, which I've referenced here. Part of this gets into what is or isn't a marina, what constitutes a marina. So certainly all the entities on the right are commercial marinas. They have the components that one would associate with a commercial marina. So certainly a boat slip, but a restaurant, gas facilities, electric, pump out facilities, boat repair facilities, showers, internet, there are various components that go into a commercially operated marina. It might be more accurate to say that we're in the distributed slip business, or the geographically distributed slip business, right? So while we have a gas dock, if your boat is not at the yacht club, you're not anywhere near the gas pump, right? So are you renting a marina type service or not? So that's certainly worth a consideration in terms of evaluating the rates. Let me pause there and see if there are questions about this.
Did you get any sense, Phil, of wait lists at these other marinas in terms of availability of slips?
Yeah, most of them had no availability, or they would say, I've got 1 or 2 docks right now. So they didn't talk, I don't recall specifically anybody saying, I'll put you on the wait list, because I don't have a boat. I was pretending I had a boat. when I called them and asked. But most of them said, we don't have availability, or I have 1 or 2 lots at this point in time.
So basically, you're saying on Tellico Lake and the local area, there are really no slips really available.
There's very tight capacity on the lake,
Okay.
yeah. I won't say there are no slips available, but, you gotta be in the right place at the right time. All right, gym memberships. So same kind of thing here. On the left-hand side are our sister communities. On the right-hand side are our local gym alternatives here. So on the left-hand side, Wind River has their social membership fee, which I put in there. It's not apples to apples. I'll just call that out. But, that's what you are paying to have access to the gym. Fairfield Glade has a very unique business model. They are completely pay-as-you-go when it comes to their recreation facility. So you don't buy a gym membership there. Every time you want to use a facility, it's pay-as-you-go. So, it's $2.50 a day to use the gym. It's $4 an hour to play pickleball. Now, you can buy an annual pickleball pass for $500. Well, that's pretty close to, a single membership here at Tellico Village. So what I did there was I built just a hypothetical mixture of activities saying, if you played pickleball a few hours a week, if you went to the gym a few hours a week, if you did the pool once in a while, and calculated that out and said, what would that cost you to do that for a household of 2? And I came up with a number of $1,310. Now, certainly, if you say, well, I don't do all those things, or I only do part of that, you can do the math and figure it out yourself. But the meter is running at Fairfield Glade when you want to do any of those recreational activities. Rarity Bay here does not have a gym membership. They don't have a gym facility. We have a special rate for Rarity Bay. And our rate for them is $1,055. And I think we have 44 people from Rarity Bay right now that pay us to come use our facilities. And then Tellico Village, you can see there the individual and family memberships, 670 and 400 and change there. On the right-hand side are local alternatives. If you said, I don't want to do that, I'll just go find me a gym somewhere. So starting at the top there, Davis Family YMCA. A lot of these had rates, age-based rate, either 60 and above, or 62 and above, or 65 and above and below. Some of them had an initiation fee. The one thing we didn't do in this analysis is I didn't look and say, how did their facilities stack up to our facilities? So, for example, one of the lower cost alternatives there would be Gold's Gym in Lenore City. Well, Gold's Gym has exercise bikes and treadmills, and they have weights. They don't have any racket sports. They don't have a pool. They don't have any of those kinds of facilities. So if that's what you're looking for, you could go, join Gold's Gym and maybe save $1 or $2, but you're not getting the same set of facilities. So I'll just call that out as you would really have to kind of pay some attention as you looked at these to say, how did their facilities stack up to our facilities? Can I really get what it is I want, like if I want to play pickleball or whatever. The average of the family membership there on the right-hand side is $864. So that kind of shows kind of where we're at. Again, the red bar kind of just takes the Tellico Village line all the way up through those alternatives.
Hey, Phil, do you know if any of these on the right have anything comparable to our offering of facilities?
Well, so I would say that in terms of facilities, I think the YMCA, has a similar set of facilities. I mean, they have weight equipment and cardio equipment, and they have a pool. I think the area where you would be hard-pressed to really see if there's an apples-to-apples comparison would be to look at their class offerings, right? What classes can you take in terms of yoga or other, activities that you would sign up to do.
But would any of them have pickleball and tennis?
So I think the YMCA's do have racket sports. I don't know, again, we didn't go down the rabbit hole of saying, well, how many courts do they have, and are they covered, or are they lighted, and, are they, if they're tennis, are they clay courts, or what? This is sort of a, what's it cost to join, and do they have some comparable facilities?
Yeah.
All right, golf. So golf comparisons can get, this seems like this ought to be really easy, and it's not. So golf comparisons get really complex due to the various, day of the week, time of day, volume pricing, options. So to keep the comparison really simple, we simply sort of went to their, I'll call it their rate card rate for 18 holes, right, in a cart. And a couple of these are calculated numbers, so I will point that out here. So on the left-hand side are facilities that are community-based places, and a couple of them here that I will say that are calculated. The rate I show here for Rarity Bay is I took their $400 a month golf membership fee times 12, and I divided it by 50 rounds, and that gives you $96 a round if you're only playing 50 rounds a year. Same with Tennessee National. I took their $630 a month fee times 12 and divided it by 50 rounds and said if I'm only playing 50 rounds at Tennessee National, that's costing me $151 a round. Now, presumably people that are living in Tennessee National and Rarity Bay are playing more golf than that. But, we sort of picked that's one round a week. Give us some sort of a baseline. On the right-hand side, we did a similar exercise looking for a guest without a member. So what do outsiders pay when they come in and use that particular facility if it's available? And you can kind of see in the parenthetical brackets there, some of them are only available certain days, like only on the weekends, or there are other restrictions. Fairfield Glade has multiple courses like we do. So there are always caveats on this, and you can read through all the footnotes. But big picture, this kind of shows you where we fall in terms of golf. Questions on that one? So we did then say, well, wait a minute, some of these gets pretty pricey unless you're playing a lot of golf, so let's play a lot of golf. What's the unlimited package at these communities? So Tennessee National, if you did the math, and that's $630 a month, you're looking at excess of $9,000 a year. That gets you unlimited golf. At Wind River and Rarity Bay, you're just over $7,000 a year. Here in Tellico Village, you're at $4,800 a year to have unlimited golf. So this just gives you a snapshot. If you play a lot of golf and the unlimited option looks valuable to you, this is what it would cost to pony up for that in these communities. Now, let me pause there. So I've shown you a lot of data. And sometimes it's kind of hard to see the forest for the trees, right? So we looked at this little piece, and we looked at this little piece, and we looked at this little piece, and we looked at this little piece. What's the all-in cost of living someplace? So we did a little exercise here, and again, this is our attempt at trying to level the playing field, if you will. So in the next series of slides, I'm going to show you the calculated costs in each of these communities. If you paid the assessment, if you played golf, if you joined the gym there, what's the all-in cost to do that? So we're going to start here with Tellico Village and Fairfield Glade. So Fairfield Glade is up top. Their assessment's $912, a boat slip $950. This is the calculated number for their gym, again, based on a mix of activities. And you can say, well, I don't go to the gym that often, or I do this or I do that. So you could adjust that number, and then 50 rounds of golf. And it comes out around $6,022. You compare that to Tellico Village, $6,224. So we are neck and neck, if you will, with Fairfield Glade. In the box here, some costs that aren't included in this graph is their amenity reserve fee upon property transfer. So today, if you were buying into Fairfield Glade, you would pay that $5,000 fee up front, and then you would have those other costs. So we did the same kind of thing here then for Wind River. And there are 4 bars here because I did one based on the calculation of 50 rounds of golf, and I did one based on the calculation of unlimited golf. And I did that because when I did the 50 rounds at golf at Wind River, if you look there, that's the second bar down, their fees and 50 rounds of golf totals $10,670, and the unlimited golf totaled $10,680. So you can see they built their business model and priced their package so that at $50, 50 rounds of golf, you're breaking even, you're better off to buy the unlimited package. If you're playing 20 rounds of golf a year, you know, you do something different. So for that reason, I included both the 50 round calculation and the unlimited calculation. So you can see at 50 rounds of golf, their $10,670 would compare to our $6,224. With the unlimited golf, their $10,680 would compare to our $8,524. And then again in the box, other costs, there's the buy-in fee of either $50,000 or $100,000 to buy into that community. Rarity Bay, similar kind of story here. Because of the way they operate, we only looked at the unlimited golf option here. So the Tellico Village number here is the 8524. That's based on unlimited golf. The gym membership there is based on the assumption that you're paying to join our gym because you don't have one in Rarity Bay. And so their grand total comes out at $15,363. We're at $8524. Again, in the box, the other costs that you need to consider there is a social membership's $10,000 plus $250 a month. You got to spend $600 a year in their food facilities, and then you can see the information there for the golf membership. And then the last of the sister communities here then is Tennessee National. So again, sort of because they're a sort of a all-in, unlimited golf kind of business model, I compared that to our unlimited golf, so $15,710 versus $8524, and so that's kind of where that falls. Now, the last thing that we did, and when we started doing this head-to-head comparison, was we asked ourselves the question, well, okay, what if I don't want to live in a planned community? Could I just go do it myself, and could I move to Lenore City and play golf somewhere and join a gym somewhere and come out ahead? Fair question. So here's that calculation here. So if you move to Lenore City, in addition to paying the property tax, county property tax, which is not in here, if you live in Lenore City, you pay a city property tax, right? So we calculated the city property tax on a $500,000 home. And so the city property tax is $1,244. And then you would have to go find a place to put your boat. And the cheapest of the public marina options, if you can get a slip at Wind River, was $2,900 at Wind River. The most applicable gym option was to join the Davis Family YMCA for $804. And then the cheapest golf option was to play only on Mondays and Tuesdays at Avalon at $45 a round and play 50 rounds a year on Mondays and Tuesdays only, and that grand total would be $7,238. That compares to $6,224 living in Tellico Village. So again, if you said, look, I don't play golf, or I'm going to sell my boat, yeah, could you save some money? Sure, but try and keep things apples to apples. You're going to go to the gym, you're going to play golf, you're going to take advantage of the amenities that a planned community brings to you here's kind of what that apples to apples cost looks like. All that brings me back to where, well, I got one summary slide here. So again, a lot of data. I stripped out all the footnotes and the peripheral information and just put here, I just called it a snapshot. So on the left-hand side, there's monthly assessments. The orange bar is us. I didn't label everybody else. On the upper right is the boat slips. Again, the orange bar is us. I didn't label everybody else. On the gym memberships, the orange bar is us. I did put a couple of caveats on there because there are some calculated numbers in there. And then golf, 18 holes. So here you can just get a one-slide snapshot, monthly assessments, boat slips, gym memberships, and 50 rounds of golf for the year. How do we fall compared to the options that we looked at in this evaluation? Which then brings us back to where we started. I said values in the eye of the beholder. Whether you think the rates are good, competitive, fair, unfair, a good value, not a good value, the data would suggest that with sales at 2.5 times Fairfield Glade and getting more dollars per square foot for a home in Tellico Village than you do in any of these other communities, at least people coming here and voting with their dollars say, we think this is a pretty good deal. We're willing to spend more to come here and live. All right, so here's my summary slide. This data shows that Tellico Village costs are not the lowest and we're not the highest. And we are almost always below average in the comparison set. It is challenging, though, to make apples to apples comparisons, and the devil's in the details. So I would advise the board, if you're going to use data like this to try and make some informed decisions, you want to turn back to your advisory committees, golf, marinas, parks and recs, and say, help us understand these numbers better, so that when we look at our numbers, we really know that we're being as fair and as level in the playing field as we can. And then the last bullet, while values in the eye of the beholder, the MLS data certainly suggests that buyers place a premium on being in Tellico Village. So that is it. Sorry, that was a lot of stuff to go through there, and I threw a lot of numbers at you there. So thanks for your patience. I'll take any.
I think that's great work by
questions.
the committee. Look, you can tell there's a lot of hours, thought, and effort went into this, and I thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Yeah, this will go a long way when we go through the budget season. I thank you and your team for all the work.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Bogardus, and I'm a member of the Marketing Advisory Team. Phil, congratulations. That was a great presentation. I just would like to share that through the first 6 months this year, 68% of all MLS residential sales could be traced to a lead from the marketing program. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Any more plugs before we move on?
Phil, I just wanted to say we briefly touched on the results of this morning in the executive session, and one of the things that came up, it might be interesting if you all had the opportunity to look at water and sewer rates at other communities similar to us as well as we're going into budget season. I mean, you have all this free time on your hands now.
All right, it's time for food service update from Skylar.
Hello, thank you. All right, food service for July. Today's agenda, we will touch on the loyalty program, the text messaging system update, facility usage, guest counts, the average price per person. We'll do the financials, July KPIs, and some recent events. All right, loyalty program update. It is fully operational. We have over 1,200 members signed up in the last 5 weeks, and that number is growing daily. The text alert update. So at the end of this month, the current text messaging system we are using will be deactivated. The new Aloha software comes with with text messaging capabilities. So everybody that is signed up through the loyalty, make sure, I left the little slide down there, that little photo where under your edit preferences, under your your portal, be sure to click the text message right there, the SMS, to receive text messages. Otherwise, you will not receive text messages. Okay? And that is for all 3 restaurants. All right, activity center usage. The Toko Pavilion revenue was down 67% in July from June. The days booked were down 40%. Yacht Club, the banquet room and activity center booking was down 65%, and the number of days booked were down 27% compared to June. The Kahiti Community Center did not have any food and beverage. Any questions on that?
This
How's
is
that?
just a month-to-month comparison?
Yes.
Do you have a year-to-date?
No, but I can get you all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask about this month, last year, how it compares. So like prior year.
Yeah, okay. All right, guest counts. The guest counts overall were down 11% July from June. The PPA is up there on the top left. You can see June, the Yacht Club was at 48. July, they were at 49. Tokwa, June was 31. July was 29. Kahiti in June, 27. And Kahiti in July, 23. And you can see the guest counts right there on the right. We were at 20,000 total last month and 18,000 for July. So,
Hey, Scotty, I know
Yep.
it's tough to look at just 2 data points.
Right.
And draw any conclusions, but in your experience, I mean, you wouldn't expect July to drop off that much from June, given that we're at the peak.
yep.
Any insight?
Yeah, as far as the bookings, in June, the pavilion, there's a lot of large golf events down there. Same thing here at the Yacht Club. We have a lot of large villager, we have the members' guests, a lot of large events in June. And then in July, the pavilion really didn't have any large events. They only had the kids' golf event over there.
They probably didn't drink a lot of golf.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, yeah. And same thing in July here at the Yacht Club. There just weren't a lot of large events booked for the banquet room. So, and a lot of people are on vacation in the community.
So a question with the guest count for
Yep.
member guest.
Yep.
Since that you feed breakfast and lunch 3 days or 2 days,
Mhm.
you got the banquet on Saturday night, you're serving breakfast.
Yep.
And let's say there were, I don't know, 200, I don't know how many people, 220 players.
Yep.
Would you count for 1 day for 2 meals, 440 as a guest count, or 220
It is 220. We'll just do 220.
each day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. The dining room sales and guest counts by time of day. Like I said, July sales were down 13%. The guest count was down 11%. And that is largely here at the Yacht Club due to, we were closed 5 days for the water heater that went down and summer vacations. Okay. So before we start this, we'll talk about the water heater at the Yacht Club being shut down for 5 days. We lost $36,500 in revenue for the 5 days being closed down in July at the Yacht Club. That's a gross margin of almost $22,000. and a net profit of $19,216 we lost just from the water heater at the yacht club being shut down for 5 days. Okay. So Kahiti, for the month of July, had $81,540,000 in revenue. That is a surplus of $2,817 versus a budget of a subsidy of $5,500. That brings their year-to-date sales to $479,000 with a subsidy of $41,837 versus a budget subsidy of $48,107. Versus prior year, they were at $43,052 in subsidy. So overall, Kahiti's doing really well. The yacht club for July, we had $164,000 in sales. That is a surplus of $33,000 versus a budget of a subsidy of $33,000 versus a budget of $14,000 in surplus. Year-to-date for the yacht club is almost $1.2 million versus a budget of $1.22 million, about $5,000 off there. The year-to-date actual, we are running a subsidy of $68,000 versus a budget of $7,400 subsidy. Versus last year, we were at $127,000 subsidy for the month. So that $33,000 subsidy, it can attribute to the 5 days being down, the $19,000 in profit we lost, and we found over $16,000 in invoices from the month of January were hit our P&Ls back in July. Tokwa, they did $165,000. That brings the year-to-date sales to $1 million versus a budget of $979 versus last year $972. They had a surplus of $12,000 for the month of July versus a budget of $25,000 surplus versus $23 at $9,600. Year-to-date for Tokwa, that brings them to a surplus of almost $52,000 versus a budget of $71,000 versus last year running a subsidy of $32,000. So Tokwa's doing well.
Hey, Scott, I just want to go back to what
Yep.
you said. $16,000 of January invoices hit in July?
That is correct.
How did that happen?
That would be a question for the accounting department.
If I recall, that had to do with the AWE
Yep.
payments that occurred in January. They were booked from an intercompany standpoint, but they didn't get booked on the LLC until recently. So the year-to-date numbers are accurate, but they were not booked in January.
AWE payments for what?
Was that payment for the
have
small
to-
wares and such?
Yeah, we'll
That's what I
probably
was
have to go
thinking,
back
small
and just
tools.
look what the final reconciliation was, but it just hit the POA side and not the LLC side of food service in January, and they just caught it, and it was an adjustment made in July. Didn't affect our year-to-date numbers, they're still the same.
Year-to-date numbers are accurate.
But I can go look at the invoices.
So it moved
It was
from the POA side to the LLC?
Correct.
So it was a classification issue. You cleared it to the POA, never hit the food service books, you've just swapped them.
John, to answer your question, it was about $9,700 in food and $2,200 in beer. Okay. Department 6080, the LLC combined, that is all three restaurants. For the month of July, we had $411,000 in revenue. versus a budget of 476, versus last year, 478. Year-to-date, that brings all three restaurants to $2.7 million versus a budget of 2.6 versus last year at 2.5. For the month, we had a subsidy of $16,000 versus July's budget of a surplus of $34,000 versus July last year, we're running a subsidy of $2,500. Year-to-date, for all three restaurants, that brings us to a subsidy of $58,000 versus a budget of a surplus of $16,000 versus last year running a subsidy of $202,000. And then the last little column down there, that's Department 6080 and the whole POA Activity Center. It's everything combined. We had $416,000 in revenue versus a budget of 481 versus last year at 483. And that brings us to 2.759 $873 versus a budget of 2.6 versus last year of 2.6. So the subsidy, with everything all combined, is at $46,000 for the month of July. That brings the year-to-date actual to $313,000 subsidy versus last year of $469. So saying all that, by insourcing food service, we have we are at a $156,000 improvement over last year. Any questions?
Yeah, I got a
Yeah.
couple.
Okay.
If I was printing this out, I like it all on one piece of paper because I won't be wasting paper, but for next month?
Yeah.
Could you maybe make that into 3 or 4 slides?
Yeah, oh, I agree, this thing's busy.
Yeah, so if you
Yeah.
if you just did a slide on Kahiti, a slide on Yacht Club, that way we could see
Sure.
all the numbers.
Got it.
That's my one recommendation. I may have missed it, but did we get advanced copies of this report, Mitzi?
No, I just updated this like 2
Okay.
hours ago.
Second recommendation is if you could send this out before the board meeting.
No, I did, but I keep updating.
I understand.
I go
Numbers
down- I go
always.
down a rabbit hole with
As
this,
soon
and
as you
it's-
put a number
it's
on a
endless.
paper, it's wrong anyway, so.
Yeah,
And the third item is, how's your water heater at Tokwa?
it's good. That one's new. That one's only, 3 years old? 4 years old?
Okay, and this is probably for Chet. Chet, my past experience, you would go through the facility and identify critical spares, we called them.
Yes.
I'm not suggesting we need to have a backup water heater every place, but if we have a critical operation that you want to man
Yeah.
7 days a week, and it takes you out of business because you lose a water heater, I don't know how much they cost.
Yeah.
But don't need an answer, but
Yeah.
we ought to be looking
Well,
at critical spares.
We have a backup order. Yep.
Yeah, that's one of those things that I've been trying to impress on all the departments. The same thing holds true for the wellness center. If they have a pool pump go down and they don't have a spare and it takes them 2 weeks to get it, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So any of those types of critical path machinery, we need to get and have it on hand.
On that same line, obviously critical path in the restaurant is refrigeration.
Yep.
Do we have PM contracts for all that stuff?
FESCO does not offer preventive maintenance plans anymore.
So how do we assess that where we might be at risk? A big walk-in goes down, you could lose tens of thousands of dollars in food.
Yep. Yeah, we just keep an eye on everything, honestly. Maintenance comes out, they'll clean the coils out, and we'll change the air filters on everything. Yeah, I've looked into that. FESCO used to have a preventive maintenance plan. They don't offer that anymore.
It might make sense to have to Steve's point, critical parts, like maybe there's a compressor we could pre-buy.
Yep.
Because that's the critical thing in a walk-in is the compressor. It's probably only a couple $1,000s, so that it could get swapped out in a timely manner so you don't lose business and lose all that food inventory.
Right.
I guess I would suggest maybe even broader than that. It's time, I think, to, and you could perhaps use your advisory committee to help you with this, is do an overall risk assessment. Okay, what are we at risk at? Not just water heaters and freezers, but other things that could curtail your operations significantly, and what mitigation alternatives are available to be considered. Some may be cost prohibitive, but at least the analysis work has been done.
Yep. Okay.
As part of the budget planning for this coming year, the
Yeah.
risk analysis needs to be done in all the departments, because there's also propane that can be a problem, since we don't have that piped in, it's in a
Yep.
tank.
Couple other questions, Steve, if you're done. Just as a reminder for everyone, the loyalty program, to be able to get into that or get your ticket, your meal ticket in, you gotta have a phone number,
Correct. Or an email.
and you've gotta be able to put that on the ticket when it comes time to pay the bill.
Yep. Yeah, there's a little line item there. Just put your phone number on there, and the server will input it into the computer.
Have you worked with training your staff to gently remind
Yes,
customers?
Yes, it's ongoing training, because that's a new step in their service. Yep.
Okay. How's your staffing going in terms of keeping your numbers and feeling comfortable around that?
Are you talking about turnover?
Your turnover, keeping adequate staffing, that type of thing?
Yep. No, we're staffed up. This month, the year-to-date average went up to 53% versus 47 last month. We had a turnover rate of 5% for July, about 7 employees total. A lot of them a lot of the kids went back to school. And then we had a couple of policy violations, and we had to let a couple go too. So, and that number will increase next month, just full disclosure, because we have a handful of employees going back to school that their notices just expired this last week, so that number will fluctuate again in August.
Last question, do we, at the pavilion at Tokwa and for the lower level here at the Yacht Club, the activity center or whatever we call it,
Yep.
do we feel that we've got the right marketing efforts in place to be able to attract business? Is that something that we need to take a refocus on to be able to increase the utilization of those facilities?
Yes, and I am actively looking at the marketing here at the banquet room downstairs for the weddings. We've started amping that up and have seen an uptick in tours coming through for weddings. So, yes, we are, yep. Yep. Okay, KPIs for July. Like I said, we did 411,000 in sales versus July 23 of 478. As I said, we were 13% down to budget. We are up 2.3% year-to-date versus budget, and up 5% versus last year. Hourly labor, goal is 25%. We ran 28%. As I said last month, the Kahidi was only budgeted for 1 full-time employee, so that's always going to be up. And then we opened up the Tokwa Pavilion Turn Shack last month. So, food costs, the goal is 40%. We ran 37%. We are 0.5% under budget for the cost of goods. Beverage, our alcohol is at 30% is our goal. We ran 33%, and that is because of the alcohol we ordered that week. The water heater went out. So the yacht club last month was sitting a little heavy on alcohol, but that'll balance back out.
Do you have the numbers on the Toko,
Yes,
shack?
for the 8 days being open in the month of July, we did $322 and spent $560 to do that.
So, I mean, we've got to advertise it. Is there any signs there saying
Yeah, I
that?
have ordered custom-made signs. They will
Okay.
be delivered on the 23rd.
Okay, so, yeah, so because I think a lot of people coming off the course don't realize it's open, so.
Yep. So,
Okay.
and that's, we'll just, that's just staying consistent, keeping it open, and just reminding the villagers that, that it's open.
Do you happen to have any numbers for last night from Tokwa, the pavilion?
Yeah, they had they had close to 200 people down there, and their sales were close to $9,000. So, yeah. Gross margin, goal is 60%. We ran 61% last month, versus July of '23 at 67%. Year-to-date, that brings us to 66%. We are up 3.8% to budget on gross margin. The financial performance, like I said, we had a subsidy of $16,000 versus July '23 of $2,500. Year-to-date, that brings us subsidy to $58,000. And the reason behind that is the yacht club was closed for 5 days, and the January invoices hitting the P&L in July. Year-to-date, sales are outperforming the budget by 2.3%.
Question. I know it was big interest getting breakfast here. How's breakfast doing at Toko and at Kahiti?
Breakfast, what do you want to know, guest count or sales? Sales?
Sales, yeah.
In July, we did $11,000 for breakfast as a company, for all three. That is 950 people.
Okay, so there is getting participation there.
Yep.
Is there certain days that it's better than worse, or?
I don't have that broken down per day.
Okay.
I can, though.
I mean, we're open for weekdays, or Friday, Saturday. and
Yeah, the grab-and-go breakfast at 7:30,
Yeah, yeah.
yep, yeah.
Okay.
So-
Where does yacht club brunch fit in? Breakfast or
It
lunch?
hits lunch.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would say in a couple of months, what I'd like to see is your financial analysis of breakfast. Are we making any money at it?
Okay.
yeah, once we get past the peak golf season,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, guys, full disclosure, the answer to that is no.
Okay, just some recent events in July. We had the July 3rd Independence Day celebration at the Yacht Club. Those are some photos from the villagers that were here and on their boats. I tried to upload, the IT department was out here. They have a drone now, and they were flying around the fireworks, but the file was too large to upload to this, so it looks pretty cool. All right. More recent events, like I said, we had the Kids Junior Camp at Tokwa. The Pavilion Turn Shack is open now, and there's just some photos from Music Night. Customer survey. So that function is now active and fully operational. You will see it at the bottom of your guest check. It's that little QR code right there on the top right. You see it up there? Just scan that, and it will direct you to a guest survey. It has been in operation for 3 weeks. We have 46 responses, and our average rating is a 5 out of 5. So we'll use this to grade the staff and overall how we're doing, just internally. So in summary, loyalty software is fully operational, going well. Lower revenue in July versus June. Lower guest count, potentially due to the summer vacations. Subsidy is $156,000 lower than July 23, and all the events and Independence Day, everything was well attended. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one quick ad, Steve, if I may. I have one quick ad. On the 15th of August, Chet, myself, Judy, Jessica Johnson met with Todd Harms and Kendra Forsyth, our auditing firm, Culture and Justice. And the plan is, within the next week to 2 weeks, they're going to make their walkthroughs, Tokwa Yacht Club and Kahiti, and just be looking at any internal control issues they may see, petty cash issues they may see, policy issues they may see. They're going to come back to us at a later date and, you know, they'll first of all give us their recommendations, but then they'll come back to us at the end and make sure that we've taken those changes into consideration and made those top additions to our policies and things of that nature. Just a small food service audit that has been asked by the audit committee and some of the board members.
Outstanding. Are there any other questions of Skylar out there? All right, let's move on to Judy and July Finance Report.
Okay, good afternoon. Let's see. Oops, I always go the wrong way every time I start here. Oh, which way to mine? Okay, there we go. Okay, July financials, I've now put our goals on there on the lead slide, just to remind us each month of what our aims are for the year. Here's a brief look at our calendar, and the information on here now pertains to our budget review plans. We're going to have our FAC workshop that is closed to the community in late October. The open session with the board to review the budget is on the 7th, and then the budget will be officially voted in during the November board meeting, and we'll send out the new assessment letters first week of December. Let's look at our balance sheet. Our cash is up $4.9 million since December. We've received the final Tenacity insurance check this month in July for $1,775,500. Our balance is up $1,767,000 since the end of June. Our cash position remains strong. Looking at our total debt and liabilities, our total liabilities are up $517,000 since December. Our asset base is up $5 million year-to-date, and that's a very good ratio. Our assets are growing much faster than our liabilities. That is also seen when you look at our debt-to-equity ratio. It is now 20% compared to 23% back in December. Our reflecting a stable financial leverage position. Looking over on the right-hand side, our accounts receivable and allowance for doubtful accounts. Our accounts receivable remains strong. The quality of our receivables has improved since December from 59% to 46%, and this is the ratio of the allowance balance to the AR balance. Accounts receivable increases since December come from flex payments, for example, used in golf for annual plans, utility receivables, and we're also capturing more of our tank install costs that were not previously being captured in the previous year. The allowance for doubtful accounts includes 100% of assessments that are more than 1 year past due. Looking at the information on suspended accounts, the balance due from suspended accounts is down for the month and year over year. The current balance of $961,000 represents 53% of our current accounts receivable balance. And suspended accounts are those that are more than 90 days past due. Looking at our unearned revenue numbers down there on the bottom, the balance is $6.1 million. That's down about $174,000 from June and up $1.1 million year to date. And you can see the composition of that balance on the slide. Utility assessments represent 47% of that total. Overall, this snapshot shows a healthy position for our liquidity, our accounts receivable, with controlled debt levels.
Judy, on the suspended accounts, was there some event between June and July that caused the significant drop, both on a lots and a homes basis, or was that just things?
Just collections, you know,
Fair enough.
they got people current, more people have paid their past due balance.
Okay, thank you.
Cash position, here's a graphic representation of our cash. As mentioned, during July, we deposited $1,776,000 into the reserve account with Morgan Stanley. That represents our final insurance payment for Tenacity, and we are now holding $4.3 million in total insurance proceeds in the bank. Our unrestricted reserves are $18.6 million. Here is a summary of all the insurance proceeds relating to the Tenacity fire. The total reimbursement was $4.7 million. A portion of those funds were used for the temporary cart barn and to perform some of the initial site cleanup. Those payments were made to Teleco Dirtworks. And then we kept some of the money in operating account for business interruption. And so we now, again, that's how we get to our $4.3 million that we're holding with Morgan Stanley right now for the rebuild. Looking at the details of our long-term debt, you can see they're in order of maturity, and I continue to focus on the first two, the golf carts maturing in September, and our balloon payment that'll be due in December of 2026. And I remind us that the current lending rate, long-term, is 8.5%, the prime lending rate is 8.5%, and the average long-term lending rate is 6.84%. Just a quick glance at our P&L overall. Our year-to-date revenue is better than budget expectations. Likewise, our cost of sales and operating expenses both continue to beat budget expectations. Looking down there at our other income, it's greater than budget and is composed of gain or loss on the sale of lots and equipment, interest income reduced by interest expense, and now it also includes our Tenacity insurance payment of $1,776,000. Our net income on this slide includes the insurance proceeds and is $8,132,000. Excluding the insurance proceeds, our net income is $5,027,000, which is 34% better than budget and provides a net surplus that is 25% above the budget. This is just a brief overview of our financial performance. Our revenue and net profit margin have both been trending upward and generally favorable to the budget, going closely along with the budget. The slow start that we witnessed in January and February has been replaced with results that meet or exceed budget expectations. Our operating expenses are performing similarly against the budget expectations and prior year. Looking at our revenue, our total revenue to date, excluding the insurance proceeds, is $23.2 million, which is on target with budgeted expectations and 27% greater year over year. July results alone were 6% better than budget expectations. Give you some departmental results. Golf revenue is now exceeding the budget by $65,000 year to date. They are up 8.5% year over year. July results were $34,000 better than budget. ACC revenue is $346,000. That's 68% above the budget. They are $19,000 better than the budget for July alone. They have 118 new permits to date versus the budget year to date of 97. Food service revenue is $62,000 better than the budget year to date and $65,000 below the budget for July. The utility department, that's just the water, the sewer, and the utility tank installs, is $80,000 under budget year to date, but $216,000 better than the budget for July. The addition of food service is the biggest driver to the variance year over year. This is a visual snapshot of our departmental results so far this year, with the finish line being our total goal that we're trying to get at the end of the year. It's a close competition between food service, recreation, and golf, all racing towards the year-end target, with the utility department following closely behind. Just on a purely straight line basis for 7 months, the target would be around 58%. So the departmental results are performing very well. Looking at our cost of sales, variable costs were very well controlled, on target with the budget and in line with revenue. This can be seen by looking at our gross margin, which is 82% for both actual results and budget expectations. Looking at our expenses, and again, notable year-over-year influence is the in-house management of food service. We still have year-to-date timing differences, reduced slightly by our July results, at play for personnel, marketing, materials, and operating expenses. Wages and benefits are over budget, $424,000 in total. 90% of the wage overruns are attributable to food service so far. Benefits are also over budget, as some of these expenses are greater than were planned. Maintenance, services, taxes, and insurance are under budget and could result in year-end savings. Utilities and banking expenses are over budget, and primarily, again, food service utilities were not properly budgeted, and merchant fee variances are coming in from some of the increased credit card sales, largely in the golf department, and food service. Looking at our fiscal flash, here's a glimpse at some departmental performance year-to-date. These are variances. These are not the actual net surplus or subsidy dollars. They're variances from the budget. Departments performing better than the budget are on the left, below the budget are on the right. And if you look at the bottom at the financial summary, gross profit, expenses, net income, and net surplus were all favorable to the budget year-to-date, and these variances all exclude the Tenacity insurance proceeds, so that's not impacting those results. Looking at our net subsidy, wrapping up our consolidated results, here's a look at the divisions being subsidized. The pie chart shows the amount of subsidy year-to-date for each department. The numbers on the right represent variances from the budgeted amounts. I've added a few categories to the chart this month to provide a more comprehensive picture. I've added principal payments on long-term debt, non-water sewer project capital spending, and then reserve maintenance is included in the departmental results on this slide. They are not included in the fiscal flash results on the previous slide. Total subsidies through July for all of these pieces of the pie were $7.9 million, which is $3.8 million better than the budget, primarily due to the fact that Tenacity that rebuild has not started yet. Through July, assessment revenue exceeds subsidies by $665,000. Oops, wrong way. This is the board reserve spending report. Total reserve spending budget, including the carryover from 2023, is $9.6 million. Authorized spending on these projects is $2.9 million. Divisional spending is detailed and totals $2,354,000 to date. And this is just another representation of that spending, that rather than by division, I've got it broken down by individual projects, and you can see that the biggest projects to date were the pavement preservation, street resurfacing, water meters, sprinkler systems at Chota, new golf equipment at all 3 of the courses, and the elevated water tank. Here's a look at the net surplus or subsidy by division, net of the reserve spending. We have operational surplus of $6.4 million to date, excluding the insurance proceeds, less $2,354,000 in reserve spending, which leaves us with a $4 million net surplus to date. Here is a capital project forecast with some deferrals and savings opportunities shown. And some of these may change over time, but the ones at the top probably will not. We've got a list of projects that will be deferred to 2025, which total $197,000. That's some of the mowers and equipment for golf that are not expected to come in until sometime next year. There's a couple of cancellations that total $550,000. The wellness porch won't be able to be built, and the fire hydrants are not going to be installed. And then we have some savings that we're estimating to have for the Yacht Club service elevator. We think that number's going to come in under the budget. The grand total estimated savings for 2024 is $787,000. Excluding the carryovers to 2025, that's $590,000. There's also, again, $4.2 million budgeted for Tenacity right now, much of which I'm sure will carry over to 2025. And there are no reserve funding requests for this month, so that is it. If there's any questions.
Any questions for Judy? Anybody in the audience have any questions? Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
On the agenda, there was a water sewer policy approval. After this morning, I can take a look at it.
Microphone, please. Steve, your mic.
On the agenda, we have moved the water service policy approval to next month because that policy needs some tweaking to tie out exactly to the motion last month that got approved for the $80 and the segregation of those funds. In the other, now we're to the other category. I have one other. Chet brought us up to speed on some questions that have been circulating in the community about when you can put up your political signage and also political flags. To restate what the board's position has been and continues to be, we follow state law. State law is the 60-day, correct me if I'm wrong now, 60 days prior to the general election, you can put your sign up and it's got to come down the day after. Yes, and with regards to flags, there is no state law that manages when you can put one up and when you got to take it down, so the board will follow state law. Is there anything in other from board members?
Steve, I just want to take a second and recognize Public Works for their efforts last week. I live up in the Coyote neighborhood. There was a huge or significant water supply line break. They reacted quickly and got it repaired, and I appreciate those efforts.
I'd also like to put out a shout out to, along with the water and sewer, to Tasks, the group in Monroe County who we work with Kahiti and also with us. They were very, very, they did a lot to help us in this process because there was some very specific parts needed to correct this break, and we would have had to go out and find them, and they happened to have them in stock and were more than willing to run them over to us and let us use them to fix this. So it's a great testament to the relationship that we are trying to build with all these county departments, and we've been able to help them in the past as well. But that relationship is key to our success in terms of managing these things.
Okay, the next step is we'll take questions concerning what we've covered today in the meeting. A reminder that there is a town hall next Thursday. So your questions on other topics besides what we're going to be covering, which would be the Tenacity rebuild and the pros and cons and the process to incorporate, if that makes any sense, will be next Thursday. So open it up to the floor.
Good afternoon. My name's Rick Dram, and first of all, Phil, I'd like to thank you for the hard work and effort that you put in on the marketing survey. I think it's a great community. I think it's a bargain to live here. Golf's a bargain. The wellness center's a bargain. Lots of bargains are represented here. The troubling issue, and is there a realtor in the room by any chance? Because I don't want to speak out of turn. I spoke to 2 realtors in the last 24 hours. This is what they told me. They told me that the inventory has increased pretty significantly. We now have about 130 homes in the main village. They weren't sure how many were available in Kahidi, but in May, the average days on the market was less than 30. They told me today it's over 60, and people are making significant price concessions. Now, the reason that concerns me, obviously, is because I'm a real estate investor. I've invested a significant amount of money here in the village, and that concerns me. And Phil did a great job of outlining the past. The problem is all statistics that you look at, particularly related to real estate, are past statistics, and it's very difficult to predict the future. I've never had so many people come up to me. When I say so many, I know 5 families that are getting ready to put their homes on the market. I've never had that before. People come up to me and say, I'm leaving Tellico Village. So I don't know whether you have pondered that, and I don't know why, because it's certainly not expensive to live here, I don't think. But maybe it's the confluence of an increase in the water bills, significant increase in the water bills, an increase in a buyer's fee, and an increase in property taxes all at the same time. So, I think that might be significant. And the second thing relates to what you just talked about in that signage, and I don't want to take too much time, but the culture of a community is very important. And what I've noticed since I've lived here is people like their freedoms here in Tennessee, and they like freedom to exist in the community that they live in, most of the people. And let me tell you, lately there's been some disturbing events. I witnessed the Tim Burchett rampage. I'm now getting a lot of signage emails about this sign is allowed, that sign's not allowed. Honestly, what you just mentioned, Steve, is not consistent with TCA code. TCA code says any sign is allowed on private property. You have up to 3 weeks to remove a sign. I talked to the election commission today. They said you can have a sign 60 days prior to in-person voting, which is early voting, not election day. So that would mean that we could have had signs several days ago. My point is the culture is very important. And I think when we begin restricting freedoms on people and raising prices, that, has a negative impact on the community. So I don't know how you guys, I wish there was a realtor in the room to see if those statistics are valid, but they certainly are. The 2 realtors were consistent on what they told me. The days on the market are going up, the prices are coming down, and that's bothersome.
I have a realtor.
Before you go to the realtor, thank you for your comments.
Thank
I'll
you.
ask Chet to verify the state law,
Okay.
because we
I
will
have
follow.
the TCA code. If you
I
like.
understand you do,
Okay.
but Chet runs the village, and
I understand.
we will follow whatever state law is written.
Great. That's perfect.
So-
Thank you.
I have a
Appreciate
question that you used a term that I have not seen yet, and I apologize that I've not seen it, but when I have read the in-person part of that, it meant you were physically there in the voting booth voting, not that you sent in a card.
Right, that's October 16th, sir.
So early voting, we're in the booth.
Yes, sir. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely.
Then that's-
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
the general, the rule, POAs have a separate rule inside the state because we have HOA and governing documents. So you're reading a rule that applies to county, the state, individual, but there's a separate rule which is listed in our policy. Inside an HOA, we have different state-approved rules, which is 60 days before a general election.
Okay.
So
The general
we will
election
get
begins
that
on
clarified.
October
Which is
16th.
September, it's the actual day, November the 5th or 6th, whatever it is this year.
No, it isn't. I can vote on October 16th. in person, at, I can go to Roane State Community College in Lenore City and on October 16th at 8 a.m. and I can cast my vote in person.
Understand, but the policy is for the general election, and it's 60 days before that if you live in an HOA.
So, well, I'm going
The
to turn this
general
over to
election
Chet to
starts on
find out
October
what
16th.
the ruling is from the state, and we'll publish it in a telegram or whatever to make it official, and if Rick is correct,
Okay.
then we need to change the dates, but we will follow state law. And you have a response to the real estate?
I do. We actually just looked at real estate numbers yesterday, so this is very new. There's 109 homes on the market right now, which
That's
is,
in the MLS, not including for sale by owner, but okay.
there's not usually many for sale by owners,
Right.
but in MLS, there's 109. And we are right on target with the entire region on homes listed, solds, time on market. Typically, we even do better than the outside market. So I wouldn't say the $80 fee, and all the realtors I've talked to, we've met with every broker that works mostly inside Tellico Village, and they haven't seen any big astronation from any of their people or people coming into Tellico Village over the $80. Will a few people decide to move because of it? Well, maybe, but I think there's other factors always on why people list their home. It's not just one reason or another. But we aren't seeing a huge increase right now of homes on the market over last year or in just this time of year.
Okay.
There was
That's
another
different than
thing that I want to go back to just for 2 seconds, and Beth, you can correct me on if I misstate this. As we have people come into the Welcome Center, we ask them point blank, and we tell them point blank, there's the $80 fee. We don't try and pretend that
Right,
that's.
right,
anyway.
yes, we're aware of that.
The interesting thing out of the group of people that they've talked to, one person said, I'm not sure that Tellico Village is right for me. And of course, we ask why. And he says, well, I've been on Facebook and some of these other things, and man, the negativity in this place is crazy.
Yeah, that's the culture.
And so how we get around that, I'm not completely convinced of the best way to do that.
Yeah.
But I know that we've got to change, or at least address the fact that negativity gives us nothing. Fighting each other gives us nothing. And being hateful and whatever word you want to use to each other gives us nothing. Doesn't matter which side of the political fence you're on or belief.
Well, I
or-
don't know I don't know what you're referring to as far as hateful political speech. I know that I've witnessed it from, the opposite side when I was president at Mr. Burchett's.
Well, that was actually,
but-
that's true, but there have been other people who've received hate mail.
Yes.
Personal hate mail.
Yes.
Other people have been treated directly.
Right.
And physically.
Well, I have too. I've
Yeah.
received that hate mail as well.
Sure, and so that's what I'm getting
So I've
at.
been a victim of that, and yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I don't think, and believe me, Belle, I don't think anybody's leaving here for $80 a month. And that's why I'm just asking why the number of days on the market. Is it the economy? I mean, food prices are up 41% in the last 4 years. Is it the economy? Is it? I don't know. I'm just saying.
No, it's a valid question.
We have to be aware going forward of what's happening, and I'm sorry, I see an inordinate amount of people saying to me, I'm leaving the village. And these are people that have been in the village for 20 years. So it's disconcerting, and I just wanted to bring that up because the statistics that you quoted are backwards looking, and I think it's important, though, particularly right now, to keep our eye on the ball, particularly moving forward. And I don't know what to do about the culture, so, I think it's crazy, some of the things that have been happening.
So being on long-range planning all those years, we always track the numbers of homes sold, and we average 350 to almost 400 homes, existing homes sold every year for the last 5 or 6 years. So, so that's the number we want to track to see if that's going up or down. So, but that would be the trend you'd want to look at.
Thank you, Rick, for your comments, by the way.
Yes, thank you.
Joe Bogardus. I'm a tour guide, and since the beginning of this year, I have completed 41 tours, and I've made it a specific part of my tour presentation. is to talk about the potential water and sewer situation. And out of the 41 tours, 9 of those tours have purchased here in Tellico Village, a little bit more than 20% of my tours this year, even though I have taken time to explain potential of a water authority, $50 to $100 water and sewer fee, as well as the potential of tapping into all of our reserves. And despite that explanation, 20% of, more than 20% of my tours have purchased here in Tellico Village this year. Just trying to give you another point of reference, Rick. So, just an observation.
So
Thank you, Joe.
I just think, along with that, Joe, is that I think a lot of people are happy or at least think it's a good idea that we are addressing the challenges in front of us. We are a 35-year-old community. We've got to be looking at what are the things that could go wrong and what are we doing about it. And, you know, we've been talking, as we've said, we've been talking about these things, specifically water and sewer, for the past 5 years. And we knew that as soon as we pressed the go button and said, okay, how are we going to pay for this? That's when some people were going to start paying attention, right? And so we've had some negative effect to that. And Rick, to your point, just watch last month's board meeting again. I mean, we seem to have lost the ability to discuss, to voice a differing opinion without getting emotional, getting mad, starting to be condescending. And that's what's happening. And it's kind of a microcosm of what's going on in the whole country. I don't like seeing that either, but we are starting to see that. And if we can figure out ways that we can have discussions without becoming emotional, without telling the other person they're stupid, you know, and we can make good progress in this community and all remember that we are all neighbors and we all want what's best. We want what is best for this community. All of us do. We're not trying to charge more just because we can or because we think we should. Everything's trying to be justified.
I think the costs are justified.
So, just my comment.
It's not the cost issue that I don't think.
Okay, with that, I need a motion to adjourn. So be it. Adjourn.